What is up, YouTube? First video after redoing a bunch of the garage layout, so pups are out here helping me. This little critter is going to help me take apart the CB350F motor. F meaning inline 4, so it is a little bit different. I just got bored and glanced at a couple things. There's a ton of stuff on the interwebs about the CB350s. Most of them were twins. The F is not nearly as common. So, kind of excited about digging into this one. It's been a long time since I worked on a jet bike motor. Hopefully I can still remember most of it. I've done a ton of the 550s, 750s, I don't know. You name a number somewhere in between 250 and 900, 1200. Honda made a motor that size. So that's what we're digging into today. Overall, moved all the bikes to that side. The idea of putting the car in here is not happening at all. So we got shovelhead chopper, super glide, the frame from the CB350, which was hopefully supposed to be going home. Didn't happen yet, nor do I really care that much. And then the iron head frame is tucked all the way in the corner. Can't do anything with that until I get the motor and stuff back. So quick little update. I'll turn you guys around and we will get rolling on this wonderful tiny little 350 piston motor. Okay, so here we are, CB350 motor. I keep wanting to say 550 or anything else. Already got you guys set up in a spot that you're gonna be in my way. All of the valve train stuff is already removed because, where did I put the box? Valve covers and things are underneath the gas tank on that valve cover. So if we dig into this, let me do that real quick for you. Don't mind the bolts that I'm going to lose when I try and turn this over. These are all going to go falling. Everything is loosely laid out together, but on the bottom side, all the rocker arms and rocker shafts are integrated into the valve cover casting. So that's going to stay right there for now. I could go through and readjust and tweak all the valves, which we're going to do on reassembly. Not overly concerned at this juncture. So here is the motor, rocker cover removed, everything else is off. You have your timing chain, two 10mm bolts here, and that is basically what's holding in the rest of the camshaft. So I'm going to pop these free. I'll get this one off, rotate the motor over, get the other one off. Then this sprocket will separate itself from the camshaft, and then we can yank the entire cam out. The chain's going to drop into the motor. You can close hanger, like wire hanger it or safety wire it or zip tie it up if you want a quick pull tab. But since this whole top end is coming off, it doesn't really matter if all of that falls into the bottom right now. I do have the tensioner bolt back in, so I'll pull that off, get whatever slack I can out of this, and we'll start yanking this apart. So sprocket bolts, they're short, they're Loctited typically, maybe not, maybe they're not. So there's that part. Let me double check on the plugs real quick too. I know there's one plug that was really bad on this, so I'm going to pull these out first just so I can get a better visual inspection. I don't remember what's what, but if I do this now, then when I edit, I will remember which ones are messed up or not. Stupid jet bikes. So typically I would never recommend using an impact for spark plugs. However, I don't really care all that much. So going left to right, we got number 1. Here's what the plugs look like so you guys can get a quick view of what we're working with. Come on, focus. Not bad. It's nice and dry. 1, 2. Not too terrible. A little glossier. 3. And number 4. He did clean these all up too, which is why they look as clean as they do. One of these was super filthy. You can see how white this one is, especially on number 4. substantially different than the rest of them. I will keep these in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, going left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does not look that bad, but this is not the most accurate method just because when he was trying to figure this out, he pulled them, he hit all of these with a torch, burned everything off of them. But that's kind of what we're looking at, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I will lay these out, again, like I said, left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And plugs are laid out. I will make a little template here out of paper towel. Let me do that real quick, I'll be right back. Reason number 1,976 why I will never be good at YouTube. Here's where we're sitting right now. It looks all mocked up. Thought I was recording when I popped out this 10 mil. I did the other side, you saw that. Went to pull this one, shifted the sprocket over, made room for everything to yank the camshaft out of this bike. However, I just looked over and realized I wasn't recording and talked to myself for the last 3 minutes. 2 10 mils on these center sprockets. The sprocket comes off of the camshaft. So right now this is floating and loose. Like I said, this was just out. Sprocket is mounted with 2 bolts. If you have a bunch of play or wobble in this, got to replace things. Not good if this is walking around or wobbling on the camshaft, but once it is free, your sprocket will come off to the left-hand side, as in if you're looking at the front of the motor, it's going to pull off to the left. Now your cam is floating. What you want to do though is make sure that you get this cam chain off. Now you have a free floating sprocket. Then you can lift this up a little bit, and we're going to kind of move the sprocket off. That'll give us a good chunk of room. Now we can rotate the cam and kind of play with this. You don't want to bang this on any sharp edges, so be kind of careful taking the cam out. Here is what I was talking about in regards to if you were just working on the top end or readjusting valves, you do not ever want this to fall down into the motor. The head's coming off, the cylinders are coming off. This does not matter at this juncture. It's good habit to zip tie this, either do an exhaust stud or run a wire through here, so this will just only drop to the bottom of the cam valley. I don't really care. We're going to be retiming and re-going through the rest of this anyway. So now the cam chain is at the bottom. If you do happen to drop it on accident, get yourself a little magnet. It's a steel chain. Aluminum cylinders, aluminum everything else. Boom, comes right back up. And if it jumped on timing on the bottom end, it doesn't really matter at this juncture because this is all coming apart and we're going through it. If you're not doing anything else like that, you want to be much more precarious and much more cautious about where that chain ends up. So just keep that one in mind. For me, it does not matter at all. A lot of people might actually pull the intake boots off of this first. It makes a little bit more sense. I'm only doing it now because once the head is off, I don't really have a good base to keep this mounted. So now I'm going to go through. I think we're going to be replacing all the intake boots on here anyway. God, this is a tiny hammer. Get one of these if you don't have one when you're working on Honda stuff. They use Phillips screws on everything and they always wear out. This is a whopping, I think, $9.99 at Harbor Freight last time I looked. There's better ones, there's nicer ones, but it is what it is and what I have, and I'm cheap. I'll probably end up going through about 4 or 5 of these a year because the bits suck. So use this on the driver to break them free, then you can pop them out with a regular screwdriver. If you don't have one of these and you're working on a Honda, drop everything and go to the store. I don't know about this top one. This one looked like it felt like it kind of stripped out a little bit. If I got 1 of 8, it's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, that top one definitely got a little mangled. So let me see what else I got in here for bits. If you buy a nicer one, you're probably going to get much nicer bits than the Harbor Freight ones. But Okay, that's exactly what you don't want to do, and now we get to deal with the repercussions of it. So on this front one, kind of started rounding a little bit there. Now we get to play how to remove a bolt. We are going to be replacing all of these with better hardware. Probably going to go back to, I don't know what, maybe some Allen heads or something. But a pair of vice grips on the outside will substantially help if they do strip out like I did on this. You don't want that to happen. You can see this one kind of spinning. I didn't have the right bit the first time I hit that, and it doesn't take much to strip these out. So now all the bolts are free. Oh, also on the cam, as I'm sitting here looking at it. Once you pull the cam out, I'm going to drop the sprocket back on here. There's the clean side. Just one quick little way to kind of line these back up. Now that's back in. I'm going to drop the bolts back in just so I don't lose them and keep everything oriented the proper way. Like so. So 2 bolts just going in loose. I don't want to lose anything. So we'll drop these back in like so. And then set the cam back over here. Quick little switcheroo while we finish pulling these intakes out. Just a regular Phillips bit now. Again, do not do this unless you break them free first. Every one of these is loose and floating. I'm also going to leave all the screws together, and this is going to go right back into that storage bin. Yank all the intakes one at a time. You don't need drills for this. You can do this entirely with screwdrivers as long as you have the impact and you break them free. Odds are, if you're dealing with an old 70s Honda motor, it sat for quite a long amount of time. And you'll want to make sure you break everything free prior to messing with it. I'm going off camera right now. Here's 2, 3, 4. You got, well, I'll keep you guys on camera. Here's the Honda bin. If you've never done this, Ziploc bags and Sharpie are your best friend. I don't really care all that much. And doing videos like this, if I need to reference anything, I can go back and watch. It's one of the best parts that I've learned about trying to do this YouTube thing. I have documentation of everything I did. Oh, the O-ring's stuck on these two, on the outers. So throw these back in the bin too. So you basically have 2 rubber boots and an O-ring. It looks like somebody's definitely gone through and machined part of these heads. Not machined, but ported or ground away at some of these. You can see the marks on this outer edge, this edge over here. Don't know what exactly happened, unless that is just a weird casting flaw and they just remachined the outside face. I would not say that these are ported. There's still a ton of casting marks. I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe they just look like that and that was kind of the final machining. We'll be cleaning these up too. It's aluminum, so that's going to cut real quick. We're just going to do a quick little cleanup on there. It almost kind of looks like somebody started on this and decided they didn't want to finish. But, I mean, doing Harley stuff, look at this. One finger. I don't have gigantic hands, I'm 6 foot. Relatively average in my book, I have no idea, but my thumb takes up this entire port. Tiny little Honda baby motors. That's what keeps it fun. Anywho, outside of the porting, let's get back to the top end. Yanking the whole head off together, and then we will go through and do a much more elaborate and much more detailed look into why it's broken. Alright, so on the Hondas, you have oil squirters that run across the span of the head. If you notice that these little pieces are sitting here, they have machined little grooves on them that will ride on the little detent out of rubber. This is super dry rotted and no longer rubber, it's almost like plastic, but then you got no ring sealed down here. A little squirter from the oil passage that basically runs it over the span of the cam, rides into the groove like so. Here's a little detent where that gasket's going to sit, and it's all floating. Nothing's super tight tolerance. You got an O-ring seal here and a beveled O-ring here, which will basically ride in this area. Same thing on the other side of the head. These are loose and free. You might just have to wiggle them a little bit. These come up and out, like so. Up and out, like so. And now we're ready to get to these head bolts, which are all acorns. Fancy, fancy Honda things. All right, so we got a bunch of 12 mils on the actual head in order to get these off. I would recommend doing this with an open-end wrench, because then you can figure out which one of these are torque. You can make sure all the values are the same. Let's do it the long way. Hold on. Let me grab a ratchet. I was going to blast these off with an impact just to save time. It is substantially faster when you're tearing a motor apart to go through and do it that way. However, if I do this like so, I can make sure that all of these feel pretty even. If I get to one of these and it's super loose, I know that that's a problem. Also, if you're doing Honda stuff in between Harley stuff, your expectation is that these are going to be in here super tight. Well, on old Harleys especially, and you got cast iron cylinders, cast iron heads, the torque values are substantially higher than they are on these, where you have studs coming all the way up, aluminum case, aluminum cylinders, aluminum heads. Torque values are substantially lower. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. At some point I should probably look into that. And if you want to get really detailed, grab a torque wrench when you're breaking these free. Measure the torque for what they spec out at. I'm going to be reconsulting a manual on all of this when we start putting it back together. So that is not necessarily the most relevant component. Now, since these are all free, I am going to zip these off with an impact. I have all of the head bolts loose. Shit. You don't want to drop them down there like I just did on that one or that one. Copper washers underneath these that are staying on the head, so those are going to come out separate. But that's fine. Head bolts. If I want to be tedious and keep these all together, again, my little assembly line of stuff, I can lay these all out exactly how they come out, minus the washers. Some of these stuck, some of them did not, and a couple of the bolts fell into the head, so that's going to be fun. And by into the head, I mean right down the cam chain valley into the lifters. Sure, any engine builder might tell me differently. They're probably not wrong. However, I don't think the order of these or the layout of these is nearly as important as making sure everything's torqued down proper. But at the same time, since I'm going through this, I'm gonna try and leave everything laid out as close to how it comes out of the bike as possible, mainly because if I get my iron head parts back, then this motor is getting put into little storage totes and bins until I can come back and free up some time to finish it. If this is all you're working on, and this bench that you're using, or workbench, or whatever it is, bag and label everything. I have no problem with people that do that. I think it's a much better approach, especially if it's not something you do on the regular. But for me right now, I'm just going to rip all of these out. I'm going to lay everything out together in one section as long as possible. I stopped by my buddy's shop again today. Still making progress on the cases, but he's also swamped with a bunch of other jobs that pay way more than I am. So I'm waiting. I also got to put another parts order in. Just kind of waiting to see what else needs to get done on those before I do that. And last but not least, okay, so here's my little organization table. Obviously I don't have the nut for this one, and I don't have the nut for this one because they're down there. Just throw the magnet in there. Actually, that's a lie. That's the one I lost. This one I do have. Drop the magnet in, pull up that one bolt just so I can keep everything together here. There's the chain. Oh, come on. Don't tell me. Oh, I just made that substantially worse for myself. There we go. Pull the chain out of the way. Remember when I said to keep the chain up top? That would have been an awesome, awesome idea. I royally screwed myself here. Here's the chain. It's just kind of floating down there. On the back side, over here, the nut's underneath it. I don't have my small magnets here, so I'm gonna have to come back to that one. Not that big of a deal, just acknowledged, noted. Now, I pulled all the acorn nuts off of the head bolts. You have these little oiler passage ones as well, so we're gonna pop those off. Torque should be about the same. It's just a real fancy nut that also lets oil through. Broken free. Every single one of these felt relatively consistent, within at least a handful of pounds. Nothing stood out as something I would worry about. Don't forget your washers. So keep all of these together. Now we have a free head outside of, just wait, Honda was really cool and cast a boss into the cylinder and the head. So you got a 10 mil over here. On the back side, do not forget it. If I started pounding on this or trying to pry this up, it would not come off. Also, gonna put this one back on here just so I don't lose it. If I gotta take the head apart, then I'll keep everything together. I will actually bag everything on a head to make sure I'm not forgetting parts. I also don't know where I'm going to get this machined yet. Last bolt. And like I said, the chain tensioner's out of the actual motor. Now, fun part. Beat the crap out of things with a dead blow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, and I still missed. Like I said, haven't done one of these before. Give you this view, and you can see why I just messed up. If you're a Honda person and you do these motors all the time, props to you, I'm learning. That should have come free. It did not, because right down here, you got your last two head bolts in these little notched passages. So, let's yank these out of the way and take this thing apart. Alright, so that is 100% the tightest head bolt out of any of the ones on here. That's not really good. You don't want one to be substantially tighter. Again, I didn't measure the torque values, so I don't know why that one's so tight. I don't know if somebody tried retorquing that one down, or if that one just got really loose. Either way, now we're free. We still do have a couple of the copper washers in here. You're not going to be able to see that, but I am telling you, we have the same washers that we had everywhere else on top of these. So when we lift this up, we just got to be cognizant of that. Also, get yourself a dead blow. They're super fun. I don't like pounding on the outside fins on this corner. If you are going to do it, tap these studs, especially with a dead blow. If you pound the corner of this or the outer edge, it will crack. And nobody wants that. Now we're wiggly free. Wham bam. Oh my goodness, these pistons are tiny. I knew they were small. I did not anticipate the small size of that. Hold on, let me grab a Honda or Harley piston. I have to. It's been so long since I've worked on Hondas or any of these Japanese bikes. Especially a little 350 like this. I've worked on some of the bigger ones, but this is just ridiculous. One singular Harley 1900cc. This is a small one. Small little baby Sportster. When I was working on the heads and had the cylinders off, I was amazed at how small these were from doing shovel head stuff. Well, one piston, 4 pistons. What do you think, Shovel? You like Hondas? Not so much. You like shovel heads? Yeah, you do. Alright, well, there you have it. One tiny little baby cylinder. These do not look that nice on the inside either. Let me see if I get a brighter light here. Let's see what you guys can see, if I can see the same things. Top of the pistons are covered in crap. Burnt oil, crust, sitting, everything else. Cylinders, super, super glossy. I can see the reflection of the piston on the side skirt. Lots of carbon, lots of crap, lots of burning, lots of... I don't know. That's not really what I want the inside of a motor to look like. I also can't get over how small these pistons are. Here's my finger. 2 fingers is over 2/3 of that piston. Man. 3 fingers doesn't fit. Big hands. You know what they say about that? Big gloves. So, now we're ready to pull the cylinders off. There's nothing else holding the cylinders down on this. We got your dowel pins here. We got the head gasket floating. Let's yank this off first. Set the head down over here on the front. This will get a full once over at a later point. Right now, we're just going to disassemble it and let it sit. So, head is off and out of the way. Cylinders. All of the bolts are free. These should wiggle right up. I am going to blow this out, try and get some of the rust and crust out of here before, or a vacuum rather, vacuum around here on all the cylinder bores, and then we'll yank the head off. The vacuum barely fits in here. Now we're going to play the wobble game until we get this all the way off. Come on. You're so close. Couple little assists. Look at these little tiny things. Ooh, super, super glazed over. You don't want them to be that reflective. Oh well. Add that to the junk pile. This is like the size of my moped cylinder, a little 70cc two-stroke. Now, before I forget, I gotta try and get this bolt that I dropped down by the cam chain out. If anybody's paying attention and actually following along with this whole thing, hopefully you were waiting for me to forget that and yell at me in the comments. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and click that like button. If you really like what's happening in the butchery of this little Honda, hit that subscribe button. Or if you think I'm an idiot, yell at me in the comments below. That's fine. But here's everything laid out. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the bolts. Cam is all facing the same direction. Head gasket's off. Heads are both sitting, head and cylinder, they're sitting behind here for now. I don't know how much further we're going to go. I'm going to do a little bit more of an inspection. Maybe I'll keep the camera going while I start looking over the rest of these, figure out why she no like running anymore, and go from there. Like I said, it's a little crustier than I wanted it to be, but I don't see any first glance. I just pulled the cylinders. I have not done any close inspection. I have not held a light to anything, but at first glance, nothing looks overly crazy. If I'm looking at the cylinders, there's definitely a pretty good edge of crap on the inside of these. You can see that little ridge there, but a lot of that's just dirty. Obviously, you can see that now. There's the one I just wiped down. There's a chunk of debris down here. Same thing on there. Let's flip it. You can see that ridge right there. That was concerning to me at first, and then can't even get my hand in there to clean the cylinders. It's so small. But that wipes right off. So might just need to rehone on these. Let me dive deeper once I actually get some real light to degrease everything. I cannot get over how small this is. This is crazy. And this bike's fast and fun. And by fast, I don't mean like, holy crap, you're gonna, ooh, sharp machined edges. Be careful with those. They'll bite you. I didn't even feel that until I looked down. Maybe that was the beer. Who knows? Just be cautious of that. If you are working on one of these by yourself and aren't familiar, any of these edges are gonna be super sharp. Anything freshly machined, anything from the machining process, you'll have your shitty porous casting and then your real sharp edges on the machined surfaces. Watch for that if you're concerned about cutting yourself. That's where we're gonna leave it for this video. Thanks for watching. Again, please click that like, comment, or subscribe button. Any of those will boost my ego and make me want to keep making more videos. I appreciate the feedback. I'm diving off into the deep end on this motor. I've never actually rebuilt a CB350 or had one of these apart this far. I've done the twins. I've never done a 4-cylinder one, so I'm learning as you guys are watching and following along with me. These are what I like working on. They're simple, old farm tractor motors, essentially. So does Shovel. That's why he's named after this wonderful chopper. But that's where we're at. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys on the next one.